My name is Ben Reed, and I teach at Monarch High School in Louisville, Colorado, and I am the advisor for the yearbook, the newspaper, news magazine, and the broadcast program. I've been there for 5 years, and before that, I taught at Stanley Lake High School, which is about 12 minutes away from Monarch
Monarch High School?
away from Monarch High School in Westminster, and was there for 13 years. And I've been advising journalism programs since 2008. I was hired at Monarch to take over the journalism program. And the woman who was doing the yearbook, she was she's towards the end of her career and had health problems. And she's like, I don't want to do yearbook anymore. Do you want it? And I jumped at the opportunity in February of 2020 and maybe regretted that. So, so my first yearbook was in the fall of 2020 and done remotely. So, and then first time being able to do an actual yearbook in person was fall of 2021. So Monarch is in a suburban community that is fairly well off, definitely well off, and is just a typical Colorado suburb. It's right in between Denver and Boulder, and just typical cul-de-sacs and white upper class, middle class neighborhood. Over winter break on December 30th, I live about 12 minutes away or so, and was driving on a road, and I looked up towards the this hill towards where the school is, and I saw just big clouds of stuff, and I said, wow, it's really windy. That's a big dust cloud up there. Holy cow, thought it was a dust cloud. That was around noon. And then I got home and I just looked at Twitter, and I saw that the Boulder Fire Department, something like that, was calling for an evacuation of Superior. So Monarch is in the middle of two towns. Superior is on one side of the highway and Louisville is on the other side. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's something. So I sent a text message on the group text with my editors, and I said, hey, I hope you're safe from the fire. If you're thinking journalistically, you should, or maybe you want to go out and take some photos.
All units, wildland fire in the area of 1133 West Enclave Circle.
There's a fire in our backyard. It's spreading across the highway.
A structure fire at 7372 Spring Drive.
Yes, me and a lady are here. We got trapped. We don't know where to go. The flames are right up against the fence behind us.
About a minute later, one of the editors replied and said, hey, I hope everybody else is safe. I don't really feel like taking pictures of the fire that burnt down my house, but good luck to everybody. And that was the first time that first off, I felt like a total, I felt like, oh my God, what am I doing? These kids aren't professional journalists. These kids are kids first and foremost. And that's what matters more than anything else. And I felt like I'd lost total sight of that. And then I totally changed course with things, of not thinking like as a journalism as an advisor, but thinking as an adult. What happened with the fire, there were 80 to 90 mile an hour winds that were literally circling over Louisville and Superior. And a fire started about 10 minutes away in a grassy area, and very, very quickly spread to Superior first. And it just went up like a tinderbox. An entire subdivision gone in a matter of minutes, literally, like 120 minutes. And then sparks would carry from that subdivision in the wind 5 miles to another subdivision, and it sparked there. And then that whole community is gone. And then more embers would fly and hit another one and then gone. By the middle of the afternoon, 35,000 people were evacuated from both these towns. And I tried to come up in my head like with some equivalency, like that's the size of, what's the size of 2 towns? Because 2 towns everyone had to find their way out. And the destruction, because it wasn't a wildfire like up in the mountains or something like that, this was a community that nobody ever expected, nobody could plan on it. It was just a normal suburb. And it was gone. Nobody knew that night if the school was gone. Nobody knew, nobody could see exactly how much destruction there was. One of the main reporters in Colorado posted a photo late on Instagram showing the school was still standing. I can see burned trees from my classroom. And seeing the pictures the next morning, some people posted some before and after photos of all the streets and all the houses and all the grass taken from Google Earth, and then somebody with their drone of the same thing, and there's more houses than you can count that are gone. So that was the day of. The next day, I replied with a message to my editors, and had to change everything because none of them were at home. They all had to find somewhere to be able to live. No, they didn't know if their house was gone or not yet. But they're living in hotels. A lot of them had mountain homes that they went to. They're living with grandparents. And I wanted to let them know, I wanted to open my doors. I had to stop being, I threw away being a journalism advisor.
Sure.
And I threw away being a teacher because the bond that you have as an advisor with your journalism students is totally different than that you have with your English class. It's because of the hours, it's because of the time, and it's because of how personal being an advisor is. These kids are sharing who they are as they're slaving over the computers. They're giving everything that they have. And with editors, it's even more different. And with this group, it was 9 editors who were together all as the editors the year before, too. And we made it through the year of pandemic and remote learning. So we were really tight. And I told them something that I said, would never tell students. I said, come stay with me if you need to. We have a brand new finished basement. You can come hang out. You can get away from your parents. You can take a private shower if you need to. You can do homework. You can watch TV. I'll keep the door closed and separate, but you can just have a safe space. And I really meant it. And I said, I just want to see you guys. They're like my daughters. None of them took me up on that the whole time, but a couple of them told me at the end of the year, they said, I was thinking about quitting yearbook, but I stayed on because of that text. Because you cared, saying that because I cared. As an advisor of journalism programs, had to deal with 2 other really unspeakable tragedies. One was a little girl in the community was kidnapped, and there was a massive search for her, and it turns out that she was murdered, and it was by a student. So we at the school, so we had to cover that. And then the other one was a student came into the cafeteria one day, and he lit himself on fire in front of about half the school, and we had to figure out how to cover that too. So I'd covered tragedy. I didn't want to do it again. I didn't want to cover it. I didn't know how to make kids look at what happened and report on it. Because this was very different than those other tragedies, and it's very different than a death in the school. Because those events have markers. They have ceremony. There's your candlelight vigil. There's the big cards that everybody signs. There's the funeral, and then you move on. This wasn't like that. Every student was affected. Everyone was affected, and there was no end point. It's just going. And so figuring out how to deal with this was so much bigger than a car crash death, which is unspeakably tragic. When we got back to school, what the school district said was we weren't going to have classes. We were going to have bells of where kids had to go to classes, but we weren't allowed to teach anything. And so it was just a place for kids to come. And so what I found in my classes, whether it was my yearbook class or my news magazine class or my regular English class, those first days, all kids wanted to do was tell their story. That's all they wanted to do. And whether their story was of how they lost their house or their story of they didn't live in the community, but they had like 4 of their friends living with them for a week, or how their dad stayed at their house and broke out the garden hose and was spraying down its house all day and saved it. They all had a story, and it was all unique. And from the quietest kid who happened to be there to the loudmouth, that's what they wanted to do, was just talk. And we had 3 days of that. And by the 3rd day, everybody kind of stopped caring about the bells, and the yearbook kids just hung out in the yearbook room all day. We didn't talk yearbook at all. We didn't talk coverage. We just talked about the fire. We talked about, hey, where are you getting clothes? We talked about, how's the water taste? Hey, when are you going to get back to your house? That's all we did. It wasn't the right, I had to be human before I could be an advisor. We talked about what's our responsibility with this. And because we do, as a yearbook, yeah, we take photos of everything, but it's also, it's a history book. And we have a duty to capture the historical record. And while the news magazine does too, not a lot of people save their magazines for their whole life. Now, the issue that they did probably will be, but the yearbook, people save for their whole life. And it goes to the local library, and it is a historical document. So it was a lot heavier of a responsibility. More than that, we had to think about what's our role for the student body, the current student body. What do we want to do? What do we want this to look like? I had 9 editors, and one of the editors-in-chief lost everything. The other editor-in-chief, the previous year, lost her dad on the anniversary of the fire. So both of them were mentally unavailable. Of the other editors, 2 of them lost their homes as well. And when we talk about that, like, yeah, they lost their homes. Okay. So, every day that they were showing up, they're wearing something new. Oh, I love your outfit. Oh, it's because it's brand new, because you don't have any clothes. You don't have any shoes. My editor-in-chief, one day, she was talking to me. She's like, she was in an apartment, and she said, all I want is a mirror. I can't even look at myself in the morning in my bedroom when I'm getting dressed. And we had an extra mirror in our house, and I brought it and I gave it to her, and she just wept over a silly stand-up mirror. So we said, okay, well, who wants to be involved with this? And we're thinking about the right personalities. And one of the two, the editor-in-chief and one of the girls who lost everything, they said, no, I can't touch this. And but the other one, Maya was her name, said, I have to do this. I demand that I'm on the team. And she said, I have to. This is going to be my passion. And then a couple of other kids of it said, I want to be part of this. I want to do this. And then there was one girl who was a staff writer who initially said she wanted to and then changed her mind and then said, no, I really, really want to do this. And she came to me crying about it. And I said, okay, you're on too. She's the one who wrote the opening and the closing copy. We also reached out for help a lot. Some people from my rep and Tina Cleveland came to the school to meet with the kids to look at things. I have a very close friend who was the advisor at a school where there was a school shooting, who he had to figure out how to cover it in his book. And he came up, he showed me what they did, showed the kids what they did. I showed my students what we did to cover other tragedies. We're just flipping through these pages of disaster. And we're seeing PDFs of how people covered COVID in big ways and how people covered a tornado and things like that, and trying to figure out how do we make this happen. And then was the idea for the gatefold to come from there. And it was a struggle for them to make things happen. We made off of your suggestion, we made a QR code for people to post, that we posted around the school for people to tell their stories. We got 2. But they made lists of people and they reached out, and what the students did was they sat and they interviewed kids who lost everything. And then they took those interviews and they ghost wrote them to put them into first person, and then showed it to the students, said, hey, what do you think about this? Does this sound like you? Or is this what you're okay with us printing? And they said, yeah. And it was slow. There were some days where the kids couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And there were some days where they were all about it. And I had to learn to give them that flexibility. I learned that it was more important for me to, again, be an adult who cares about them first, more than getting work done. The work will happen, but I need to make sure that you're mentally okay for today. There was a lot of gallows humor amongst the kids. Oh man, that photo's lit, just like my house was. We had to get through it. We talked about it every day, all the time. And we had to stop. We didn't care. I didn't care about deadlines. I didn't care about that. I cared about the mental health of these kids and and also their physical health, because they weren't living where they needed to live. They didn't know where they were going to be staying the night. And not just back on December 30th, but for months, some of them. For months. And their houses are being invaded by people cleaning things and, scrubbing everything. And you think about the little stuff that you don't have, like a chip clip to keep your chips fresh, a pot holder. You don't have that stuff anymore. How do you get that? You just accumulate that stuff as an adult. It's gone. And as a kid, your home is your entire existence, and you don't even know that life is going to continue. When the book came out, it wasn't, and they opened it up, it wasn't the jumping for joy. It was relief. It was, we finished it. We made this happen. Seeing kids pour their heart into something and learn and grow and care about something that they did and they do That's what matters to me more than anything else. What they learned through that process is going to make them stronger. We're not healed. I'm not healed from this. It's going to take a long time. And for everyone in the community, it's going to take a long time. But they gave the community something that helps with that healing. And the process of them creating it helped them find a pathway towards healing. And as an advisor, that's my role. That's my role. The product's going to happen, but that process of figuring out who you are and what you're doing in your life is what. It's why I do this. I'd give the advice to reach out for help. Don't be alone in this. Talk to other advisors. Talk to, with Yearbook, talk to your rep. Talk to the people who are here at JAU to make those connections. Don't be alone in this. There's comfort that comes from others in crisis. I'd also say you got to take care of yourself. It's important that you are. It was important for me that I was mentally available and emotionally available for my kids. But I'd also say that I didn't try to hide how I felt. I didn't try to hide when I'm having a rough day. I wanted to be very human. And then along those lines too, I'd give the advice of remember that they're kids first. And they're scared and they're hurting. And taking care of them matters most. The yearbook will take care of itself, but the kids need you. And for me, I needed them too, to help me through it too.
Teach your heart, right?
Yeah, it's to teach your heart. Yeah.